going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now,
Jimothy.
So ladies and gents, we are back and I've kind of decided to play a different style of deck. So what's been happening over the past couple of weeks is that I've been testing a few decks here and there, not really testing against any live opponents, and then just taking evil twins to any kind of like tournament setting that I've been to, because I know the deck well. I know how it plays, I know it functions, it's got a load of space for tech cards, and it's just meant that I've been playing the same deck. So I said to myself, you know what, I'm gonna take all the hand traps out, take all the staples out of the cards, and just put the deck to rest for a little bit anyway. And I've decided to pick up another deck. Now this isn't necessarily the deck that I'm going to be taking forward, but it's something that I'm testing in the meantime. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into the profile. Now if you've seen the thumbnail, you already know what deck I am on at the moment, which is Dinomorphia. Now, I do like this deck because it reminds me of Sky Striker in the sense that you need to make sure that you make every card interaction count, especially as you're trading one for one with your traps, and your life points are just supremely low, which makes it for an interesting play style. So Theresia, you definitely need 3 of her. She sets a Dinomorphia trap, gets your engine going, and yeah, can't be ashed, which is interesting. Obviously, Vader and Imperm is a thing, but just can't be ashed, so worth noting. The other Dinomorphia monster we're going with is 3 Diplo. So I've decided to max out on them, mainly because resolving your traps turn after turn, you need to keep some of these in deck to be able to resolve some of your trap cards, which is your power plays basically. So 3 Diplos definitely help support that anyway. And for the other monsters, I'm running 1 Miscellaneous Saurus as well as 1 Lord of the Heavenly Prison. You could potentially bump this to 2. This was a last minute addition, to be honest. I decided to put this in. It was another card, I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been like Upstart Goblin or something like that. But I've decided to go with Lord of the Heavenly Prison just to be able to close out a few games a little bit more easily, because the way that I've designed the deck at the moment, I keep ending on just Rexsturm and not much else, depending on how the game's gone anyway. So just having another option as well as being able to set a card off its effect is super useful. So just the 1 Lord of the Heavenly Prison, and that is it for the playable monsters. And then the only hand traps, monster hand trap we're running is 3 Ash Blossom, just because it's the most generic. I did actually try to play this deck without hand traps, but I found like it wasn't as effective going second, and you do need to be able to go second, ladies and gents, especially game 1. You need a few going second cards to be able to kind of like resolve before you go into your traps. But onto the spells. Playing a triple pot of duality. This could well easily be prosperity, but unfortunately I don't own a prosperity, so duality is going to have to do. You don't necessarily special summon a lot on your turn. If you do, then obviously you can hold the duality, but for the most part you're playing on your opponent's main phase, which is kind of like the gimmick of this deck, to be honest. So 3 duality just for some search power. Also playing the double fossil dig again, just to be able to search into our Theresia. And if we have Theresia, then we're definitely, without hesitation, searching Misk, especially once you've got your Theresia set up, to be able to then have the Misk in hand, just to make sure that your Rexsturm kind of stays on field, is just super useful. So double fossil dig. Also playing double lightning storm. This helped out a lot in the main deck as well, ladies and gents. Like I said, going second, it's a problem. To be able to lightning storm and either just burn one of your opponent's negates or just remove some of the back row off field just makes playing the game a whole lot easier, especially with this deck that tends to do better going first for the most part. So double lightning storm. And then finally, some power 1-ups. We've gone for the 1 Core by the Grave as well as the 1 Monster Reborn. Now this card is very interesting in this deck. Going first, it's not the best obviously, but going second, it is just super useful, especially if you've got a setup as well. You can reborn your Rexsturm, you can reborn one of your opponent's monster and go into like a rank 4 play potentially. There's a lot that you can do, and because you burn through a lot of your traps so quickly, there's no necessarily easy way to recycle some of your Dinomorphia main deck monsters. Just being able to reborn them and proc their effects is just something that I found super useful. So definitely the inclusion of Monster Reborners has helped me a bit, as well as being a 1-of. I don't necessarily see it as much as you would think, and it kind of comes in clutch when you do see it. So yeah. Moving on to the traps, which is the main bulk of this deck. We're running triple domain. Domain is actually really good. it gets you into your Rexterm as well as getting you into your Kentrigina. It's super useful. This can fuse from hand, deck, or field. So it's basically Shadow Fusion in a trap card. Again, with a lot of the Dinomorphia trap cards, you have to pay half your life points. So you do need to manage your life points accordingly. So triple domain goes without saying. As well as the new card from Dimension Force in the form of Dinomorphia Frenzy. Now, everyone keeps touting this card as being the better option compared to Domain, but in all honesty, they're both as good as each other. Frenzy just gets you straight into your Rexterm, but Domain is a little bit more convoluted, but it still ends you on the same board, as well as a bit of a graveyard presence or a graveyard setup. Domain just gets you straight into your Rexterm, and it's just go all gas from there. But Frenzy, very, very powerful card, something that I value highly. You need 3 of these. Without saying. For the rest of the Dinomorphia traps, we're running 2 Sonic. I do run the 3rd in the side because once your opponent knows that you played a trap deck, it's gonna put in a load of floodgates. Sorry, not floodgates, back row removal. So having another Sonic, which is a spell and trap negation, is just super effective, as well as it being searchable. You kind of want to see it, to be honest, and especially going second, because your opponent's probably going to side the Twin Twisters or something like that. And your spells and traps have utility in the graveyard as well. So definitely being able to kind of like just put this on field or just draw into it going into game 2 is just super useful. So double Sonic, as well as the 1 Dinomorphia Alert and the 1 Dinomorphia Brute. Again, super useful. You could potentially increase Brute to 2. I haven't messed about with the ratios yet, and Mystic Mine hasn't been much of a problem because I've been playing mainly combo decks. So Dinomorphia Brute is just like a nice little out to like a floodgate or something like that, and Alert is just a simple, nice and simple reborn. You could potentially bump this up to 2, but ideally you only need the 1, because when you see this, you should have graveyard set up anyway. It's a little bit like Monster Reborn, but searchable basically. And then for the generic traps, 3 of what I'm gonna get on a t-shirt at some point in my life. Jonathan's Solemn Judgment says no. It's simple as that. This card's crazy in this deck. You need it. Simple as that. Also running the triple Ferret Flames. This was at 2 in my list, but then when I realized it wasn't a once per turn, I said to myself, let's put the 3rd one in. I want to see opening up, because if you resolve one of your Dinomorphia traps, regardless if it gets negated or not, if your opponent sets up a full field, Ferret Flames could potentially just be a field wipe. So yeah, super important. I'm also running in the form of another hand trap, 3 Infinite Impermanence. Now, the reason I've gone for Imperm is because the Dinomorphia monsters actually need trap cards to be able to banish, the main deck ones anyway, to be able to summon themselves back to the field. So having an abundance of traps that you want to get rid of or that you've used already is way more useful. So the easier banishing and Infinite Impermanence, you're never going to get it back out of the graveyard anyway, so it kind of serves its purpose twice. So it's really, really useful in this deck. So triple Imperm, as well as the double Grave Digger's Trap Hole. This is to stop Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom kills this deck, especially with a lot of your main deck fusion cards being able to fuse from deck. Ash Blossom could just literally just end your turn if you haven't got the correct hand. So having a little bit of trap protection against Ash Blossom is super useful, as well as it being another target to banish for your Theresia or your Diplos. Next, we are on to the extra deck, and the extra deck is pretty straightforward. Starting off, we're running 3 Dinomorphia Kentrigina. She can copy a Dinomorphia spell or trap trap it in the graveyard, a normal trap, and just activate it, use its effect basically. So your alert, your fusion spells, your brute, anything like that, it just absolutely just destroys. It could just do so much. It's so much utility, as well as herself being able to float into one of your Dinomorphia monsters. So definitely a 3 of in my opinion. As well as 3 Stealth Bergia. You very rarely summon this, I've found. It does come up from time to time, despite what a lot of Dinomorphia players state. Being able to just kind of protect your life points and just keep continuously using your spells and traps, as well as doing a little bit of burn damage to your opponent, because despite this deck being able to beat over most things in the game, it does have a problem with just like OTKing, because you typically have like 1 or 2 monsters on field at most. So you're never really going to OTK in this deck. You're going to kind of like grind out your wins, and any opportunity for your opponent to come back into the game is a bad opportunity for yourself. So you kind of want to just be able to resolve as much as possible to just kind of win the game, and Soft Berger does help with that from time to time, but more so the most time you're going to be just sending this off one of your fusion spells anyway. Andy Big Boss Daddy, aka Skill Drain with Teeth. Dinomorphia Rexterm. This card is just stupid. Like, I've resolved, I think, Frenzy. No, I resolved Domain, and then I summoned Kentragina, and then Kentragina went straight into Rexterm. I'm at 2,000 life points, and my opponent literally can't do anything. Like, it's silly. They just can't play the game. They can't really attack because he'll just blanket, reduce everything kind of field. It's just mad. It's mad. And it floats as well, which is just silly. So, triple Dinomorphia Rexterm goes without saying. Then for some of the other cards, we're running obviously the Dino package, the Volsar Lagia, as well as the Dolka. Nothing needs to be said about that. As well as a spicy little tech. Now this could be anything else basically, but I've decided to go for the Raiders Knight and the Raiders Knight and the Ark Rebellion XYZ Dragon, mainly because your Dinomorphia monsters are dark for some reason, so Super Poly is a thing. But if they manage to stay on field, especially with your fusion monsters floating, you can actually go into Raiders Knight, blanket negate the board, and just attack for game. It's silly actually. It's crazy. So definitely a nice little tech there. This could be anything else to be honest, but I very rarely go into this. I'll go into like Dolka or Lagia, but very rarely they'll go into this. So this could be a bit of a flexi spot. It could be anything you want it to be. And then finally we got the Dark and the Unchained Abomination. Now Unchained would potentially be access code talker, but I just can't remember what deck I've left him in. So I took this. I've actually took this deck to locals, and again I didn't really summon the Dark Charmer or Unchained Abomination. I literally just used my 9 fusion monsters to just win the game, as well as my abundance of spells and traps. So Unchained Abomination is a nice little tech, but access code definitely. Or you could even potentially take these two out and put in Psychic End Punisher and Tornado Dragon if you really wanted to. So yeah. And that is it, ladies and gents. I won't show the side deck, mainly because the side deck is obviously tailored to locals, so it does need a little bit more tweaking. So it is a little bit under construction, but I'm definitely going to play this deck again. I actually won a game on 8 life points, which I thought was just absolutely crazy, something that I've never done before. So it does provide a unique experience playing this deck. But anyway, we find ourselves at the end of another video. As always, if you did like this content, you know what to do by now. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, all of that beautiful good stuff, and I will definitely see you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.